Okay, so I was on the train for a long distance, a great distance. Well, I finally got here. The thing is, remember the sign, Botley? So I got off at Botley, and then I was instructed to walk past the gas station, right? Well, past the gas station was only just the start. I kept walking and walking and walking. Finally, yay!
Hello.
So you're talking now to, I don't know, thousands and thousands of guys that are sleeping on a 2-inch mattress.
Yeah, I've done it myself. Believe me, I've been there.
Yeah, you've been there a couple of times.
Yeah. 32 years I spent in the British prison system before I got out. I've been out 6 years now. And I found that the way to change your life really for me was through education.
Yeah.
Education is the key to rehabilitation, and also taking responsibility for what you've done in the past. For me, that was pretty hard. I went through a prison therapy program for 5 years in order to try and learn empathy. And I realised that I can't, you can't learn empathy. It's something that you have. But it gave me a good insight into, behaving in a proper manner. And I actually refrained from doing all the things I've been doing in the system over the years, attacking prison officers and other prisoners and making alcohol and manufacturing weapons and selling drugs and whatever. So I stopped all that and done 5 years of therapy. Due to a personal circumstance, my 19-year-old son died while I was in prison, serving 8 life sentences. And to me, it's like I've been out of prison for 6 years now, and it's amazing.
What's amazing?
Everything is amazing.
Really?
Everything
Tell
is
me.
great.
I want to hear.
Obviously, when you come out of jail and you've been in jail for a long time, a lot of long-termers, I've spoken to a lot of long-termers and lifers who are now out, and they all go through a period of kind of depression.
When they leave.
Yeah, not for the first few weeks are great. Everyone wants to know you, everyone's slipping you a few quid, that's money, and they're throwing parties for you and everyone's glad to see you.
Right.
But then when that all dies down, this depression creeps in. A lot of people handle it with drink or drugs, and I handled it through work. I decided if I'm going to be out, then I need to work, and I'd never had a work ethic. Work in prison was like kind of non-existent in British prisons. You do 3 hours a day for £7 a week. So I kind of threw myself into work, and because I'd learned to write and I'd had a book published whilst I was in jail, I looked around for what sort of work I could do as a writer, and I became a freelance journalist. And I'm now working for the National Prisoners newspaper in this country, Inside Time, and we deal with all the prisons. Any prisoner can write into us. Any prisoner can write an article and it may be published if it's good enough. We've got prisoners writing short stories, poetry. We put out poetry anthologies twice a year.
And then do you print it and send it out to the prisoners?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We do messages for their families in the paper and stuff like that. Valentine's Day, Christmas, birthdays.
That's
it's really great, and it keeps me grounded because I'm actually, every day I come into the office and I deal with the prisoners' letters. I'm the commissioning editor, so it's my job to go through and sometimes I look at letters and I think that was me 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
When you look at those photos of you in the past, what do you think?
I'm kind of horrified, really, because
what do you mean?
When I think I was running around with guns and knives and, robbing banks. I've robbed over 200 banks in this country. At one time I was one of the most wanted men in this country. And I look back at those days and it kind of depresses me a bit as well.
Really?
Because, I think how much life I wasted. And the money that I stole, I probably could have earned in the time that I spent in prison. I spent 32 years in prison. Now there's me in action robbing a bank. We were a gang. We were known as the Laughing Bank Robbers.
Laughing Bank Robbers.
Yeah, and the reason the press nicknamed us that was because we robbed the bank on Christmas Eve, which is my birthday. There was a guy selling Santa hats, novelty Santa hats outside. We put our ski masks on, all bought a Santa hat and put them on over the ski masks. Then went in, robbed the bank, wished them all a Merry Christmas as we left. So the press thought that was kind of funny, so we kind of lived up to that image. They didn't know who we were and put us in as the Laughing Bank Robbers. So what we did next was we robbed a bank which was next door to the police training college.
I see. So just for a laugh. Yeah. I see. So they kind of got you that, man, you're going to make a joke out of us. Yeah, and so you were the laughing bank robbers.
Yeah, that's what I was the only one arrested. The other 3 had gone wherever. But I ended up getting 8 life sentences plus 8 lots of 10 years for firearms offences. And basically I sat underneath the Old Bailey, and my barrister, my QC.
What is a Bailey and what is a barrister and a QC?
The Old Bailey is the highest court in the country.
Okay.
There's only one, it's in London.
Okay.
And it's where all the most serious cases go to be tried and sentenced.
Okay.
And the barrister is your lawyer.
Okay.
Only he's like a top lawyer. You've got solicitors who are like paralegals or whatever, and then you've got barristers. My barrister said to me when I got sentenced, I sat down underneath the court and I said to him, "What do you reckon?" I said, "How long do you think I'm going to do?" And he said, I'd known him for many years, and he said, "I'll be quite surprised if you get out before you're in your 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my life
What do you think
finished.
of that? You thought, my life is finished.
Yeah, is it okay if I smoke?
It hasn't stopped you yet. And what do you call those in England?
Well, in England, these are known as fags.
How do they get the name?
I don't know, they've just always been called fags. In prison,
Yeah.
it's called burn.
Burn.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Very
it's a
literal.
burn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
snout.
Snout?
Snout.
Okay, snout.
The reason it's called snout is quite interesting, because in the British prisons in the 1880s they had a law of silence,
Okay.
which meant that prisoners could not speak to each other or anybody else. They were kept separate, and they thought that if they were silent and they didn't speak to other prisoners, then they wouldn't learn more about crime,
Oh, I see.
and they'd be more inclined to turn to religion and repent. So what happened
How
was,
well did that work?
it didn't work very well at all. And I'll tell you what happened, prisoners developed the sign language.
No.
So touching the end of your nose or your snout meant you wanted tobacco.
I
So
see.
the word
it's
came
snout.
out of, so if you pulled your ear, meaning you wanted it on the ear, you wanted it on credit, or on the arm, that was the sign for I want to borrow, which is why you say you get things on the arm if you get them for nothing.
So if you want somebody to just give it to you, it's just give it to me on the arm.
You would go and touch your nose.
Oh.
So in England, the word topped, if someone says he's been topped, it means you've been killed, right? Or
Okay.
you've had the death penalty when it used to be out. And that
Okay.
was one of the signs as well. Prisoners would come back from court and the sign language would be, meaning what did you get? And if you went like that, it meant you got the death penalty, because the judge would put on a black cap before sentencing you to death. And it's still used today. Criminals use it.
Wow.
They say, like, see him over there, I want him topped. You know, it's just part of the slang.
Wow. Yeah, you have a book on slang.
I do, yeah, the criminal alphabet. It's about prison, criminal slang and police slang as well. Mainly English, a bit of Irish, and there are some Americanisms that are creeping into the prison system in Britain now.
Okay,
For the
so
youngsters.
if we're lucky enough, maybe, just maybe, we'll get a comped copy of it, and
Yeah.
I'll read some to you. So do you think that we can GOGI have a copy of that so we could share it?
Definitely.
Yes?
So we'll make
Yeah?
sure you get a copy, yes.
Okay, so we're gonna get a copy of that, and then while I'm on a train going to wherever else we're gonna go next, I'll read you some of this slang. Noel, that's because you were born around Christmas
Eve.
time. Did
Christmas
they know
Eve.
that was gonna be your name? Or
No,
you just
actually-
popped out and they said, Noel!
Actually, funny enough, I was born on Christmas Eve 1960, and my parents were actually, I was an early baby. My parents were at the cinema watching Psycho.
Psycho.
And that was like kind of like an omen, I suppose, for me, because I went on to become a bit of a, although I didn't dress in my mother's clothes. and
No,
kill people.
please, no.
No. But I have been recently diagnosed as a psychopath.
You have been?
Yeah, on TV. I've done this program called Meet the Psychopaths. I do a lot of documentaries on television and stuff like that. And they've done this documentary called Meet the Psychopaths, and they tested me, and it turned out when I was a kid, I got hit in the head with an iron bar,
Okay.
and it damaged my frontal lobes, and that
Okay.
is why I had no compunction about doing what I did. I scored like in the mid-range of psychopathy,
Okay.
but once you're over 40 and you're putting your efforts into something else, it's not a worrying thing. There are a lot of psychopaths, it turns out, who are really good at business. Well, and a lot of good sportsmen are actually have got psychopathic tendencies because it
tendencies.
drives you. And
it's a
makes
lack
you,
of compassion,
Yeah.
so you can do what you want to do or
Yeah.
need to do.
and
I
become
see.
single-minded.
It's the
Yeah.
single-minded thing. Ah,
So it's
pretty
not
cool.
really a bad thing.
Yeah.
It can be bad if you're a psychopathic killer,
Right.
but if you're just a psychopath, it's not as bad as people think.
Okay,
mean,
so
it
there's
might-
some hope for people that get bad psych evals, is what you're
Yeah,
saying. Because
yeah.
a lot of guys, they get those psych evals and they think, oh man, that's the kiss of death. That
Yeah.
is, I'll never get beyond that. But you certainly got beyond it. Now you did a movie.
Yeah, I've just done a feature film.
Oh my
actually,
gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's great. I'll send you a link to it. I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
It's going into a lot of film competitions like
Okay.
Sundance and things like that. So it's not allowed to be seen publicly,
Okay.
if you know what I mean,
Right?
or on social media.
Okay.
But, I mean, I can send you a link to it and you'll be able to see it and
Okay.
and have a look at it. And there is a trailer which you can actually find on Facebook.
Oh my God, that's like living the life. Do you know how many prisoners are sitting on their little 2-inch mattress saying, I want to be just like him? There's a gun shop over there. I didn't know you were allowed to have guns here.
I'm not allowed to have guns.
You're not, yeah. No, I would imagine you're not allowed to touch a gun ever.
No, you have to sign a firearms license when you leave prison here, saying that you're not allowed for the rest of your life to be in touch with or to be in possession of a firearm.
I see.
If you're in for armed crime, mainly.
But for a guy who slept with a gun under his pillow, that's a sense of security to have that firearm.
It is, yeah. I mean, you know, when you're in the criminal world, it makes you very paranoid
Yeah,
because you're dealing with people really who can't be trusted.
right.
You know, at the end of the day,
And then you're just one step away from the cops that could knock down the door.
exactly, and over here they will shoot you just as quick as they
Yes.
will shoot you in America.
Yeah.
If they know you're an armed criminal.
Right.
You know, they don't mess around. They will shoot. A lot of my mates got killed in the 80s by the police on armed robberies. So yeah, you're in a paranoid world where carrying a gun or a knife is kind of like de rigueur. I never left the house unless I had at least one knife, a knuckle duster and a gun. So it became like picking up my keys and my wallet and whatever and going out. And in prison as well. British prisons, I suppose, like prisons all over the world.
Right.
A lot of people who manufacture weapons in prisons, and you know, it's a big black market, and you always have to have a weapon in prison. It's as simple as that. There's a lot of, I think the murder rate in British prisons is 7 times higher than it is in the outside country.
Wow.
Yeah. So
now you don't sleep with a manufactured weapon or a gun under your pillow. What's that like?
Well, I still have a hammer by the door.
You have a hammer by the door.
You can't completely get rid of everything, just in case of burglars. But I've met a lot of burglars in my time, and believe me, I've been burgled, and I wouldn't like it happening again. And you're allowed to defend your own home. But
So you have a hammer. I love it.
but my wife, I got married when I got out 3 years ago, and she just doesn't understand it. She's known me since I was a kid.
Yes.
But she's kind of coming in and checking under the pillow. You haven't got a knife in here or anything like that. So it's kind of a weird situation, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I feel a lot more relaxed now. I don't, you know, a lot of the criminals that I mix with now are ex-criminals like me,
Right.
who have given up their life and are all doing positive things with their lives.
Is that truly possible? Because I know that, you know, just like at Pelican Bay, there's 6,000 men. Let's say that 90% of them go home. Let's say almost 6,000 of them go home. Is it possible for them to choose a good life? Is it possible?
I think it is, yeah. I
Really?
mean, I know people who were the same as me, who were dyed-in-the-wool criminals, career criminals for many, many years, and serious criminals, and serious recidivists and subversive prisoners. And they've gone through so many years in jail and so much has happened to them that when they come out, they're kind of, you're sick of it. You've had enough of prison. So it is possible. You have to educate yourself. That's the most important thing. And believe in yourself as well. You have to have the desire to want to not go back to prison. Prison depresses me. I go into prisons now to talk to young offenders.
Right.
When that gate slams behind me,
Yeah.
I still get that little tingle of apprehension, like I'm entering a new prison as a prisoner. And I know a lot of other people who have been criminals all their lives and are now doing other things. I mean, a mate of mine he was my crime partner, so we robbed over 200 banks together. And this guy, eventually, he loved driving. And eventually he got his heavy goods vehicle license when he came out. But now he's a lorry driver and he absolutely loves it.
Now a lorry is like a big rig.
Yeah, big truck.
Yeah, a big truck.
Yeah,
so he's a lorry driver, which in our language is a big truck driver.
Truck driver, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And he goes all over the country and he absolutely loves it. And hasn't committed a crime in 7 years since he's been doing it. I know other guys who are really dyed-in-the-wool criminals who are now doing other things as well. And what it's a matter of is having a desire to change, being able to access the education and the courses that are going to help you to change, and then having a determination when you get out to not go back to your old life, because you know if you go back to your old life, you're going to end up back in prison.
Yeah.
For my first year I was out of jail, I was getting phone calls at least once a week from criminals who I know asking me to come and commit crimes with them.
Right.
Oh, I've heard you're out. Do you fancy carrying a gun on a bit of work tomorrow? Because in England, in London, crime is known as work. So a bit of work is a robbery.
Right.
So I was getting phone calls saying there's 10 grand in it if you come up tomorrow and carry the gun.
So all you got to do is carry a gun.
And threaten people with it, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Threatening people with a gun, robbing a place, and you walk away with $10,000.
Yeah.
That's pretty, 10,000 pounds. That's tempting.
Yeah, I mean it is, and having been a bank robber all my life, I know how much money was involved in it.
Yeah.
But I would spend the money as quick as I got it. It wasn't worth anything to me, and I didn't. The last thing a criminal wants to do is be arrested with the money. Otherwise,
He
it's
wants to
pointless.
spend it first.
Yeah, you want to spend it. It's pointless going to the trouble of doing the job and then being caught with the money.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare for a professional criminal. So we would spend the money as quick as we got it. I would buy cars like 6 at a time. It was just mental. I didn't even have a driving license. My friend, he would buy state-of-the-art snap-on toolkits and all sorts of toolkits, and yet if a light bulb went in his house, he'd have to call in an electrician to change it.
But he loved buying the tools.
Just loved the tools. That was like
But he didn't know how to use them.
No.
Wow. You keep saying education. But my experience is that the education that's provided to prisoners is developed by psychologists and it's hard to make sense of it because it's not really the language that most prisoners, it's not street language, it's not real life, it's not anything that they can apply. So how do you educate yourself when the topics that are taught really aren't applicable? A lot of it is religious.
Yeah.
So how do you get that education that's meaningful to you?
Well, I find that if you can read, reading, I mean, I was self-taught. My education came from the books. That once I learned to read,
okay.
I then read everything I could get my hands on, and I became a voracious reader. And it got to the stage where you're reading, say, 3 books a day on different subjects, and you get to the stage where you've read everything you want to read, and you're suddenly picking up books in order to entertain yourself, and you're looking at them and you're going, this is not that good. I could write something like this, because you've read everything and you think, well, why can't I write? So if someone can write that and have it published, why can't I?
So you are an author many times over.
Yeah, 6 books out at the moment. One of them was a million seller all around the world. My
Which one is that?
A Few Kind Words and a Loaded Gun.
A Few Kind Words and a Loaded Gun.
Yeah, it was the autobiography of a career criminal.
Wow. Do you think that it's available to American prisoners?
It
Really?
came out in America. Yeah, it came out in America with I think it was the Chicago Free Press took it in America.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah. So do you think at the libraries, the prison libraries, it's in there?
They could probably get it. Yeah, I've got an American version at home of the hardback, which I've got as a souvenir. But what really inspired me was reading great books and thinking to myself, this is what life is like. Reading John Steinbeck for the first time with Mice and Men, when I was just learning to read. It's a very small book, but it opened my eyes to so many things. And reading the classics, Charles Dickens,
really?
And stuff like that. Just amazing stuff there is out there. And the more your mind becomes open, the more you're open to ideas about what you can do with yourself. Because a lot of criminals, we act as though we have all the self-confidence in the world and all the bravado and all the machismo. But when it comes to actually living, it's easy to opt out of life and become a criminal. The hard part is actually dedicating yourself to becoming a straight goer, what we call a straight goer in this country, which is
Straight goer.
Yeah, someone who doesn't commit crime and goes out to work every day. They're the real heroes. People who provide for their families, people who get by in life without hurting other people.
Without hurting other people.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what kind of come to me. When my son died, I had a long think, and I had all this knowledge from reading all these great authors.
Yeah.
And the idea that I might be able to write, and it's the one thing you can actually do in prison, which doesn't take a lot of money, and you can apply yourself in your cell. I mean, just reading, the more you read, the better a writer you become. And that's what happened with me. I had my first book published from inside prison.
Wow. Okay, well, hey, so what do you want to say to the guys watching this? We're almost out of battery. I think we've got like 2 more minutes. What do you want to say?
I'd just like to say, don't give up. Seriously, I had 8 life sentences plus 80 years wrapped around me. My life was finished as far as I was concerned. I thought I was going to be in jail for the rest of my life till I was an old man or I died. And because I managed to change my life, and I actually set out and was determined to do it, and I educated myself, and I'd done all the courses I could, and I got involved in every program I could. I'll spend all day working on the paper, and then in the evening I'd just go down to the beach and have a swim, and you know, it's a great life. And I think of all the times that I sat in prison cells and wished that I could have a life like that.
And now you got it.
I've got it. Yeah.
Now you got it. Do you think that if a guy in a U.S. prison puts enough stamps on a letter, that he could actually write to you?
We actually do get letters from prisoners in America.
You do?
And we do get, we've had letters from guys in San Quentin.
Really?
Yeah, and we publish them in the paper.
Do you really?
And actually, anyone who writes to us, we will send them a copy of the paper.
Really? So if I put a card up on the screen right now? Okay, so right now you're seeing the card. If you want to write to them, please do. It's Inside Time, Botley Mills, Botley, Southampton. Super. So they can write you and then you'll even send them? That would be so awesome. Well, Noel Smith is a man of his word. He said he was going to send us a book, and guess what? Got it in the mail today. Criminal Alphabet. There were a couple of really cool things here I wanted to share with you. Let's see. Vegetable patch. Some prisons do not have a specific room for the communal television. So it's placed centrally on the wing, and prisoners must bring their cell chairs to sit around it during association periods. This spread of chairs around the TV is usually known as the vegetable patch because it is where the vegetables, those who want to sit slack-jawed in front of a TV watching soap operas, this is where they sit. When a prisoner ends up in the vegetable patch, they are classed by other prisoners as a cabbage or a Cabbage Patch Kid, after the freaky-looking American dolls of the 1980s, or as a hobbit, meaning they have given up and accept their imprisonment. Real prisoners never accept their imprisonment. So he has gone to great lengths to create a dictionary. We're going to read this a little bit later, but Noel said he would give it to us, and he did, by Noel Razor Smith. A man of his word, that man is.